Hey guys, I know I haven't been on in a little bit, but yeah, just some updates. I am like flabbergasted by like the wait time to see a doctor here like since I moved. It is insane. I mean, I just can't believe it. The amount that we pay um for insurance and co-pays and all this stuff in this country just to have to wait like half a year or longer to see a specialist or a doctor. Like it's nuts. And um like what are you gonna do until then? Like what if you need like something, some kind of like special treatment, or I don't know, like what are you gonna do? Like what are you gonna do in the meantime? um and it's like not only here, like in the Mountain West, the wait times are really long. Well, also because there's a doctor shortage here, and this is happening like all over the country. But um, yeah, there's like a doctor shortage here. There's a doctor shortage like in a lot of other states too, and the wait times can be even longer. I get that, but that's just a really long time. Like 6 months. I mean, come on, like or longer. So, yeah, in the meantime, all I can do is just basically treat myself, like, right? Like all I can do is just like basically basically medicate myself. I don't know. I mean, I really don't know. Like what if you need like certain, meds or just whatever, like, and yeah, so I've been trying to deal with that. It's like also like my thyroid is failing. I had like some tests done, like it was like maybe like half a year ago, but yeah, it's like I have like to do something about that, and it's like I can't even get in to see a doctor for that. So um it's like one thing on top of the other, like I mean, when you have like one chronic illness, the thing is like a lot of them like tie in with each other. They're all interconnected. And a lot of the times, especially with like autoimmune stuff, it kind of snowballs and it's all like tied in with like all these other conditions like it that have similarities. So, if you have one, you most likely have multiple others, and then later on in life, um, you're more prone to developing like um, even more autoimmune diseases. So that could be a lot worse. And I'm a little bit scared, I'm not gonna lie, because, I have family members that had really very serious autoimmune like diseases like myasthenia gravis, that's pretty serious, scleroderma, that is a very, very serious illness. So I'm kind of worried about that because I already have like going on like four chronic illnesses. So it's like, it just seems like it's like piling on top of each other, right? And it's all interconnected, and eventually, you just get something else, right? Like, I mean, and um, that's the thing. Like I said, with autoimmune conditions, like a lot of the times they're intertwined and there's a lot of overlap between them. And a lot of it has to do with like stress too. As we know, like um, stress caused by whatever you went through in childhood, all this stuff, like it catches up to you, right? Like it catches up to you, and like it manifests in the body as illness, right? And that's what I have. Like chronic inflammation, all these things that put me, compared to like normal women, it puts me at like I don't know, a 10 times or more risk of getting, say, like a heart attack or whatever. Like I have like all my like it's like it's just all these indicators that like basically that like basically means like you're just at a way higher risk than the rest of the population. Um, Way higher risk, you know. Like I've talked to doctors in the past and said things, and I've had, because I have PCOS, that's one thing that I struggle with throughout my childhood and then later in my teens, and then finally got diagnosed late. By the time I was into my mid to late 20s, I finally got diagnosed with PCOS. And the thing about the medical system, our medical system, and a lot of medical systems, is there's a lot of what's called medical misogyny. Yes. So the thing is, a lot of the like say medication dosages, excuse me, and a lot of the medical equipment, everything has been tested on men, right? But a lot of it has not been tested on women. So we haven't even come close to understanding women's health issues, right? Medical issues. It's underfunded, under-researched, and it's just not as important, right? Because we're women, we're just not as important, right? We're not as basically seen as human in this society. So that's why our, you know, medical conditions are not taken as seriously as men's. And also, like I said, you know, it's just crazy, like so many things like in our healthcare system that are literally just tested on male patients and not the female population. So, you know, also dealing with that, and the fact that, like myself, so many women have been diagnosed late, a little too late, I might add, um, with PCOS. Uh, and by that time, like if you're looking at mid to late 20s, that's a little bit too late, because by then you most likely already have the other conditions associated with PCOS, like I have. So now you have not only one, but you have multiple chronic illnesses because you were diagnosed too late. And the really crappy thing is our system literally only cares about women's fertility and whether you're going to have babies or not. That's how we're treated. We're literally treated like cattle, right? Like vessels just for reproduction. That's it. That's our only purpose. And it's really fucked up, but that's how we're treated. And literally that's how I was treated with PCOS, because when I would come in and talk, even when I talked to female doctors, it was like, "Oh, so you have PCOS, so any plans to get pregnant?" That's how I was asked that every single time. And I explained to them, listen, like I have been single, happily single and celibate for like 8 years. Why would somebody like me why would I be trying to get pregnant? And so it just doesn't make any sense, right? And so that's the first question they would ask. I would explain the situation. A lot of them would laugh it off and just not really take it seriously. But um that's what they want to know, right? They want to know if you're sexually active, and they want to know if you're trying to get pregnant, because the thing with PCOS is it's like the number one cause of infertility in women. There's other chronic conditions associated with it, which I have, which is metabolic syndrome, Hashimoto's thyroiditis, all that crap. It's all interconnected, and each of those conditions leads to infertility, right? So when and I'm sitting there and I'm like, that's not my concern. Like, I am not concerned about getting pregnant. I'm concerned about my fucking health. I'm concerned about the fact my blood sugar is off the charts. I'm concerned with, you know, my liver issues. I'm concerned with all this other stuff. That stuff falls by the wayside. I don't give a fuck about any of that. I care about my health, right? I care about my body. I care about my health. That's number one. And they don't see that as number one, right? They don't see that as number one. When you go in and see a doctor or a nurse, they see it as, oh, like let's see how we can, you know, help you get pregnant, basically. And it's like, no, like, what are you talking about? So like I said, whenever I go in, it's so annoying because every single time I go in, inevitably there's like questions about fertility, all this stuff, and I'm like, look, I don't give a shit. I don't give three fucks about any of this crap. You know, I don't care. Stay away from my ovaries, stay away from my organs. All I want is I want my health back. And in order to do that, you have to obviously take all these medications to try to regulate everything. And you know, that's the thing is like the treatments also aren't really up to date. Um as far as what medications you can take for it and all this, there's just so many things that are so messed up about women's health. And it's just really depressing because, like I said, like I can't even get proper treatment. Like, I mean, and it took that long, right? It took that long for me to get a diagnosis in this country and treatment. That's a long time. And like I said, by that time, a lot of the damage has been done already. So, and this is true for so many women. I have seen their stories. They're like, by the time I was 28, some are even like, mid 30s, mid 40s by the time they get a diagnosis. And by then, I'm sorry, but a lot of damage has already been done because one of the main, hallmarks of PCOS and all these things, metabolic syndrome, is you have insulin resistance. And insulin resistance is very scary because it wreaks havoc on your blood vessels. It causes plaque to build up in your arteries. There's all these kind of things associated with it. It snowballs into, diabetes and all these symptoms. It basically causes a lot of the same symptoms as diabetes and heart disease, right? So that's what you're looking at. And if I'm dealing with that shit, right? If I'm dealing with all that shit by the time I'm like in my late teens, early 20s, the last thing I'm thinking about, okay, is about pregnancy, right? That's the last thing on my mind. And I've had doctors sit down with me before and they're like, you would be extremely high risk. They're like, basically, don't even think about it. I mean, some of the, like, I did see an OBGYN once and that was just random. I don't know why I even went to them. I had no business really even talking to one. But she's like, yeah, you would be extremely high risk. She listed but she's like, oh, well, sometimes it can work out. We can help you through it. I was like, that does not sound fun to me. Because what they were talking about was basically like, okay, for example, a woman who doesn't have PCOS, like, okay, or all these other things that I have that causes infertility, right? Like, if she gets pregnant, she's at what, like a 5-10% risk of preeclampsia, which is like really scary. You get that during pregnancy. It's like extremely high blood pressure. You can stroke out from it. You also get gestational diabetes, which is diabetes. You get diabetes throughout the entire pregnancy. So she's like, where other women would be at like a 5% risk, 10%, she's like, you're at like a 70-80% risk. And I was like, oh, hell no. Oh, hell no. If there's like pretty much a guarantee that, and this is why, like I said, I pretty much knew from a young age that I was not going to put my health at risk for any of that shit. And that's kind of why I really think deep down I kind of stayed away from men and dating and all that. Because I just knew, like, I know my body. I just know, like, I don't have good health, right? And, like, society, they just don't give a shit about that, right? They don't care about what you're going through, your health issues. They care about what you can do for them, right? They care about what you can do for them. They care about you being able to pop out babies and all this stuff. Like, no, screw that. Like I said, my health, everything started to experience all that at such a young age. It's very traumatic to start to go through that at such a young age. It's horrible. And you think like, oh, well, I'm this young, like my health should be good. No, it's not. And it doesn't matter necessarily what you look like from the inside, right, or the outside. It's what's going on in your body that people can't see. So that's what I basically was going through and struggling with most of my life. And that's not even taking into consideration all the other stuff that's also tied in with chronic inflammation of the body, which is PTSD's tied in with that too. So there's a lot of stuff, basically. But like I said, the way you're treated in the medical system, and as a nurse, like, I know this, and it's bad. Like, I know how bad it is. So, and I have struggled for so long just to get the proper treatment, right, that I need. And even now, like I said, with the doctor shortages happening everywhere and people having to wait like half a year just to be seen, it's insane. And like, what are they going to do in the meantime? Like, what are they going to do? Just treat themselves? Like, this is serious stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm taking multiple diabetes medications, and sometimes I'm really worried about like my blood sugar dropping too low, right? And I actually wear a medical bracelet so you can see what I'm taking, because first responders, they have to be able to know what I'm taking, what you're on, because if you're on diabetes meds, that's pretty serious, because if your blood sugar drops too low, then you're going to pass out or whatever could happen. So they have to know that you're taking that, so they know, okay, like her blood sugar is probably really low, right? And you know, um that's just like one of many things you have to look at with these kind of, you know, autoimmune things. And PCOS isn't necessarily autoimmune, it's more endocrine related. But all the metabolic endocrine stuff is just kind of all tied together, right? Like, you know, the pituitary, your hypothalamus, your thyroid gland, which is the master gland of the body. And if that messes up, oh, if that goes out, like that's like the master gland of the body, and that's what's failing me right now. They saw in a scan, they're like, yeah, you got a lot of, it's inflamed, and basically your body's attacking, you know, your gland, your immune system attacks your own thyroid gland. It thinks it's a foreign invader. So that's what's going on. And once that goes out, you're basically like screwed. Like you have to basically take thyroid replacement hormones for the rest of your life. So, you know, all this stuff, like I said, going through it, starting to at a very young age, that's really traumatizing. It is. And, you know, I'm not that young now, but like I'm not that old either. And to be experiencing this like full blown, it just really sucks. And um I don't know. But you know, and it's just common with like a lot of survivors to go through like these health issues. And you know, especially those with autism too, because autism is tied in with a lot of these issues, these chronic health issues that I have. It's tied in with that. So it kind of all, like I said, it's all like interconnected. And yeah, but you know, a lot of survivors, like especially the ones with PTSD, all this stuff, like they most likely have some kind of chronic thing going on that has to do with inflammation. So, yeah, chronic inflammation in the body is tied in with all, pretty much almost all the modern like diseases we're dealing with in the West, you know, like diabetes, heart disease, all that is all linked to chronic inflammation of the body. Which is definitely what I've been diagnosed with since a young age, like really, like, and the thyroid stuff too. It's tied in with that because, like, I remember when I was young, people would point out, and I was only like, right, really young, like in my late teens, early 20s, and people would look at me and say, like, you look like you're like, you look really swollen, right? Like they just look at me and be like, you look like really puffy, like swollen. And it was like embarrassing, like it was insulting. But it's like at the same time, I'm like, yeah, you're right. Like, what the hell's going on? What's wrong with me? And then years later, like I said, I got diagnosed. But before then, I didn't know what was wrong. I just thought, oh, this is normal. Like, I just thought I had some allergy or something. People would be like, you look like you're swollen. Your face, everything is swollen up. What's going on? And like I said, nobody knew. I didn't get a diagnosis for years. And this is common, you know, people getting late diagnoses um, and then having to deal with the aftermath because they got diagnosed too late. Now they have all these other issues to deal with. So, yeah, but like I said, the stress from narcissists and sociopaths that they cause in your childhood leads to this. But you know, you have to. I mean, yeah, the stress from their abuse, everything definitely leads to all this. And a lot of some of it is, you know, genetic too, definitely, because I know my mom, she definitely was very sick. She had pretty much everything I have now. She gave it to me. Um, uh, like, but it was really bad because she was not getting any treatment, right? Um, the thing is, you know, being a female narcissist, she never valued herself. She never, um, took care of her health. She never cared. She didn't value herself, right? And if you don't value yourself, then, you know, you're not really going to care. You're not really going to care. Um, you're not going to care about your health. Like you're not going to do anything about it because her priorities at the time was like putting men on a pedestal that didn't give a fuck about her and worshiping them instead of taking care of her own health, right? Like, where are your priorities at, right? And that's the thing, that's what a pick-me is, and that's why I can't fucking stand pick-me's. Because pick-me's will put male validation and attention over their own health, right? And see, like, I think guys can pick up on this. Like, they can pick up on your energy and they know what you're prioritizing, what you're not. And I feel like they can feel it in your energy. Like, if they know if you value yourself or you don't. Like, they can tell pretty quickly. And they can also tell, like, what your priorities are, right? Because if you have all this health stuff going on and you're putting everyone else before yourself and their attention and validation, like, they'll be able to tell, they'll know. And that's not respectable. Like, you don't obviously value or respect yourself if you're doing all that, right? So yeah, I mean, it a lot of it has to do with being a pick me, but it also has to do with your energy too. Your energy does not lie. People can tell, like, when you're playing around, like, people can tell when you're not playing, basically, and you're not playing with your life, right? You're not playing with your life. You're not playing with your health, and you're not going to allow anybody else to play with your life either, or your health, right? And that's what narcs want to do. They just want to play with your health all day. They want to play with your life. And a lot of them, they don't take their health seriously. They don't care about that. They'll destroy themselves just to get to you. They'll destroy their own health just to get back at you. They don't care about themselves either. They don't value themselves. They don't have any self-esteem. Same with my mom, no self-esteem whatsoever, because if she really had self-esteem, she would have protected herself. She wouldn't have. And it's not to take the blame off, the men that put their hands on her or abused her, because those were my memories in childhood. And I've gone into this in the past in a lot of my videos, but those were my memories as a child, was walking out and seeing these, I don't know, some of them were drug dealers, some weren't, putting their hands on my mom in front of me and beating the shit out of her in front of me. Those were my memories as a child. And I looked at the situation, and obviously I'm in shock. I'm just a kid looking and seeing her get beat in front of me. But my thoughts as a kid was like, okay, this is never going to happen to me, right? I'm immune to this. Like, this could never happen to me. And then as an adult, like, you underestimate, right, that just how cyclical this generational trauma bullshit is. And you think, oh, that's never going to happen to me. And then what happens? It does. So, yeah, that's really what people think. Like, when they're, younger, they think they're immune to all that. It's never going to happen to me, and it does, And like I said, my mom was dealing with all these health things, and like I said, she just never valued herself to get treatment, to get, proper care, and get help, and that's what ended up happening, just destroying herself just to get a sliver of male approval. And these are the type of women that I had to look up to in childhood. The most self-destructive, just don't have self-esteem, don't value themselves, pick me ass BPD and MPD women. And that's why I've cut them all off. That's why I've gone on contact with my entire family, because I was never like that, right? I was always the total opposite, right? Growing up with them. And I knew that I was never like that. I was never going to be like that. And that's why, as adults, like, my siblings, everyone else in my family hasn't done shit with their lives. They haven't gotten anywhere. And I've, above and beyond, like, surpassed them in every single way possible. Even dealing with all the stuff, like, the health issues and all that stuff. Like, so, I mean, they don't really have anything to show for it. For being the way they were their entire life. They don't have anything to show for it. I mean, you don't really get very far in life, right, if you don't have any self-esteem. But narcs and sociopaths don't have self-esteem. They have to regulate it through bullying other people, through tearing everyone else down to try to build up their own self-esteem, because they don't have any self-esteem. They only get their self-esteem and self-worth through tearing other people down. They can't regulate within. I don't need to go out and tear other people apart, pick them apart, pick apart their appearance, pick apart all this stuff, pick apart every little thing about them, just to try to regulate myself, or, feel like I have any self-worth. Now, will I, like, give somebody back the same energy they're giving me? Yeah, you're right, I will. If you're giving me, like, I don't like you vibes, or you're giving me, you're trying to tear me down for things out of my control, I'm going to give you the same energy back. So don't expect me to be nice to you or kind to you if you're not being that way to me. You're not going to get that energy that you want back. You're going to get the same energy back that you're giving me. So that's how I am now. If somebody feels the need to try to bully me or tear me down or whatever, I'm gonna give them the same energy back. And that's what narcs don't like. They want to be able to be, they're entitled. They want to be out in the world and think they can talk to people any kind of way and treat people any kind of way. And they want that those people that they mistreat and that they tear down to be nice to them, right? To be nice back to them. That's not how it works. That's not how life works. All right, you get what you give, okay? You get what you give. And I know, like, for me personally, just dealing with like the whole like things with like autism and schizoid and all this stuff that I've done some reflection on, kind of thought about all these things from, you know, childhood and all that. Okay, yeah, that looked like it's like autism. That was like autism too. Like, you know, not being able to pick up on things, just little things like social cues, all this stuff. Like, it all makes sense. But basically, you know, all these things that kind of like basically makes you different and kind of puts you at a disadvantage compared to people who don't have these things, right? So I kind of look at these things and kind of think, okay, like obviously that puts you at a disadvantage in society, but what are the things about these things that I can use for something positive, right? That can be beneficial somehow. So I try to like take those and use the strengths from those, basically, um but I know having these, right, like autism and schizoid traits and all that, puts me at a place where I can't really give a lot of people what they want. Meaning, like, I can be close to people, right? But like I can't necessarily give them maybe what they need, right? Like emotionally and all this. I know I'm not really capable of a lot of that. So I'm very upfront with people, and I'll let them know I'm really honest, and I won't just like lead somebody on, right? And like narcs and all them do, like where they promise you this that they know they're not capable of delivering. Like, I'll be completely upfront and honest and be like, look, like I'm really, you know, the things I deal with, right, with autism and all this stuff and all these like symptoms, like I'm like, I literally can't give you what you want. You might need to go to somebody else, right, to get it. And I'll be really kind about it. I'll be honest, I'll be upfront, and I'll be like I'm literally, like, I'm not capable of, you know, like giving you any of this if they want whatever they want, um like friendship wise or like a relationship. I'll just be really honest, like I can't give this. Like, you're gonna have to like keep it moving, right, and move on. So I don't even get involved, right, in the first place, with people like that, because I know that I'm not really capable, right? Because of with the PTSD, CPTSD, autism, all these things basically kind of makes you like, I can, like, you can emotionally connect still, but it's just like, it's just there's a lot of you know, disconnect too. So I know that I can't really give somebody what somebody else who doesn't have all these things can give. So I don't even say I'm capable of it, right? Like, I don't even put myself in that situation, to begin with, right? That's a part of being honest, right? That's a part of having empathy for other people, which narcs don't have. That's why they get involved with people. That's why they lead people on, knowing that they can't love, knowing they can't actually connect with anyone, knowing all these things, but they still do it anyway. They still do it anyway, and they still hurt other people, knowingly hurt other people and all this stuff. I might do certain things that might like unknowingly hurt people, like I said, with like missing certain social signs and cues, and kind of like I'm not with all the social pleasantries, and you know, I don't really like make eye contact a lot, you know, a lot of the time. That's difficult for me. That's really difficult for people with autism and schizoid traits and stuff. I'm not really that, you know, I'm aware, like, you know, when I'm out, like, and stuff, like, my surroundings, but socially, it's just, I know I'm so different, and like I just knew this, like, you know, with my siblings, like my narc siblings, like they can turn on the charm, right? They can turn on all this like charisma and, you know, seduction and all these things. I don't even know those cues. I don't even know how to do it, you know, flirting, all this. Like, I literally can't even, I don't even like understand it, right? and that's them, like that's their specialty, right? And that, like, I could never, like I could literally never keep up with those social hierarchies or games. I can't do it. The narcs are like experts at that, right? They're like experts at honing in on how to, like, obviously they learn their they work on, they practice their manipulation skills from a very young age, so they know how to basically work a room and get people to side with them and all this. And I'm not interested in any of that, right? Like, I'm really not. I'm not. You know what I'm saying? Like 90% of the time, I just want to be left alone. I want to be left at peace, and I don't really get lonely. Like, I don't. I don't know what it is, but I just I feel very content and at peace in solitude a lot of the times. And as you know, I think also, like, being a woman, that's not really like expected of you, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, women are expected to be like not really like that, and being like that, that kind of like puts you even more kind of on the radar of other people, because they think, well, that's kind of strange because you're not doing all these things like that, you know. Basically, like, society, I know it's bullshit, but like society kind of like expects for women to do. You just don't, you don't follow that. So you're kind of just basically kind of a nonconformist, right? Like, you don't conform with society's expectations, unlike narcs that are obsessed with how other people see them, perceive them, society's expectations, what society wants. And people, like, with traits that I have, like, we don't give a fuck. Like, we don't care at all what anyone thinks of us, or what society expects, or societal pressures to do certain things. And like I said, that's why I never conformed. But both my narc siblings, for sure, like, they were conforming their whole life, right? It's funny because, narcissists, they want to act like they're these rebels and they don't give a fuck and they don't care what anyone thinks. No, 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 that is not true at all. No, they are the ultimate validation seekers, ultimate attention seekers, but they're going to try to play it off like they're not, but they are. They really are. Um, People who genuinely don't care what others think of them, it's a whole different vibe. It's a whole different vibe. But yeah, like I said, with society and everything, like, kind of the way they like expect women to be, it's not like expected, right? Like, it's kind of like looked like, oh, what is that? Like, that's weird. But ultimately, like, you can't really care or like compare yourself. Um, But yeah, I mean, a lot of survivors anyway have like these traits, so I don't know. I think it's kind of good though, because as we just adapt, right? Like, you just adapt. Socially, you adapt. Emotionally, you adapt to your circumstances, your environment, trauma, what's happened to you, you adapt, right? And you develop these traits, right? Like, these survival traits, which are meant to protect you, right? It's kind of like how your brain like goes into fight or flight mode, or it releases adrenaline, or all these things that are self-protective, like they're meant to protect you. And these, chemical functions in your body are meant to protect you. And that's why they're there. It's protective, right? Um, when somebody spaces out, right, like they dissociate, and they don't want to be where they're at, right? They don't want to be around the people they're around, and they just want to be somewhere else. You can see it, in their eyes, and when they like space out, and that's also self-protective, right? Um, it protects the brain, basically. It protects the brain. A lot of these things are meant to protect the brain, right? And because the brain is what, like, basically the most important organ in the body, one of the most. So your body will literally do anything to protect your brain, right, from trauma. So it does these things, and has these reactions. So, and that's what a lot of these PTSD traits are meant to, symptoms are it's meant to protect you. But the only problem is, right, like with PTSD symptoms, is like you're not in that situation anymore, right? but your brain keeps reacting like it is and still in that same situation of abuse or whatever situation you were in, trauma, and it keeps acting in a way like you're still in that situation, so your brain basically can't catch up and it doesn't know that you're not in danger anymore, right? But it keeps releasing all these chemicals and causing all these symptoms, which makes it seem like you're still in that dangerous situation 24/7, right? Which is why you keep being hyper vigilant, looking over your shoulder, always scanning the environment, thinking there's danger, stuff like that. So, um, but yeah, it's all like trauma responses, and it's meant to be self-protective, right? And a lot of people say like, oh, these trauma, protective reactions, it's not like it's not voluntary, like I don't like or like people will say like, oh, you can just switch it off. Like a lot of these are involuntary. It's an involuntary reaction. It's very hard, I think, even with therapy, to like switch a lot of these trauma responses off. You can't just switch it off like a light switch, so, but yeah, I just wanted to say that how all this, it's kind of interesting how like all this is like really interconnected, like, PTSD, chronic inflammation in the body, and then all these chronic illnesses that are kind of all tied together. And then, of course, all of it, I wish I had like a whiteboard or something I could write all this down and show you guys like with like arrows and stuff. Um, but basically, it's kind of all like tied in. The root is in your childhood and the stress and the trauma you put through at a young age, and then you adapted, to that. So, um, but yeah, I mean, going through that amount of stress that, narcs cause you, and then thinking that it's normal, like normalizing their behavior when it's not normal. Like nothing about them is normal. That's why they have to try so hard, right? To pretend they're the normal ones. They're the ones who aren't evil, right? Everyone else around them is evil. They're normal. They're trying to do everything they can to take the smoke off themselves, to take the magnifying glass off themselves. That's why they have to talk all this shit about everybody else, right? And tear everybody else down. But because they don't want people looking at them, right? They don't want people giving them back that same energy that they give out to other people. They don't want that. They don't want that. They're too cowardly. That's why they have to find yes people and enablers and agreeable people and all this stuff. And, unfortunately, especially as women, we are literally socialized by this shitty patriarchal society since a young age, to be agreeable, right? Because that's seen as, oh, you're not acting like women if you're not agreeable. Like bullshit, because we know that being agreeable, where does that get you? That gets you played, that gets you used, that gets you all these things. So being non-agreeable is not a bad thing, right? But there's so much society pressure, especially, for women, to be these ways, otherwise men won't like you, right? Which, like, what's more important, right? Like, surviving all this shit with narcissistic abuse and then trying to move on with your life and get healthy again. What's more important, that or worrying about what these other people think, you should be and all this stuff? That's not as important. But yeah, unfortunately, like I said, we're conditioned since a young age to have these traits, which all these traits, right, that women are conditioned to, that good women have, right? Oh my God, the gaslighting. The gaslighting is off the chain. To be submissive, right? To be agreeable, all these things. Where does that get you? Especially when you're dealing with narcissists, where does that get you? That gets you played, that gets you used, that gets you conned, that gets you manipulated. All those traits that men say, especially in society, are feminine and desired. Where does that get you? With narcissists, where does it get you? I mean, some men are, it depends, obviously, on the individual. But a lot of them are not socialized to really be that way since young age. They're socialized, they can just be themselves, nobody's going to question it. They can be, rowdy, and they can be unruly, and they can be disagreeable, and they can be these things, right? But women, we're conditioned to be good, right? Because if we're not good, then that means we're all the way at the other end of the spectrum. So we must be evil, we must be bad, we must be witches, we must be all these things. There's nothing in between, okay? In a patriarchal structure, okay? So in order to be good, you have to go above and beyond to prove you're good. But I made a post actually in one of my, in the YouTube forum community posting, and I made a post about how stop worrying about, you know, whether people see if you're good or a good person or a bad person, just worry about being neutral. And I said that because you know, you have to be able to critically think and to analyze, you know, people's character, right, and figure out what their character is and all these things. So stop worrying about whether people see you as a good person or a bad person, because that's how narcs and sociopaths get you. That's how they shame you, because they're going to try to be the arbiter, right? The ultimate God, right? The ultimate judge of whether you're good or evil, right? So so they want to be the one to determine that. But see, like I said, you cannot give a fuck what they think, what any narc thinks, or anyone thinks. You have to go and within and worry what you think, right? And I think, like I said, I think that's especially hard for women who have literally been socialized to go out of their way to get male approval. And I really hope this mentality shifts in society with all this pressure on women, especially because women, we're just not seen as real human beings. First of all, we're objectified all the time, especially sexually objectified in society. And we're also seen as less human than men. And also, all just with the history and everything of you know, oppression that goes way back. But also, like, I don't know why I keep losing my train of thought in this. But like I said, those traits, those qualities that like we're literally conditioned to have, that put us at that risk, that disadvantage to be manipulated by narcissists. You know, those are the same qualities that will get you played and used. The thing is, though, I will say that the female narcissist sociopath has like perfected, right, the art of appearing super feminine, super submissive, super all this, but deep down, they're really manipulative and they're controlling. Same with the male narcissist. A lot of male narcissists will go out to appear super masculine, right, and all these things, but really, deep down, they're really not like that. So it's kind of just all about, obviously, the image and everything they're projecting, but yeah, I mean, like I said, with all these things, it's just the way that we're socialized has worked against us, right? So you just got to break out of that socialization. And I know it's so hard for so many women because, especially, you know, like just heterosexual women, I would say, you know, to kind of like stop doing that. Like, I think it's just hard because of how they're conditioned and socialized. I've managed to break out of that socialization, and I'm straight, right? Like, I'm straight, but I also see, you know, all the ways which I've been conditioned since childhood, not only with narcissistic abuse, but also these expectations, right, of my behavior to be considered good, that led me right into an abuser's trap, right? And these same traits that make you a good woman also make you a target for narcissistic abuse. So that's why I said, stop worrying about being a good woman or all this shit that like society expects you to be, men expect you to be accepted by them. Because if you're not a good woman, then you're a whore, you're trash, or like you gotta like let, like, you know, just stop caring and just let go of that. But I know it's so hard. I know it's so hard for a lot of women to do that because they're just so pressured and brainwashed and conditioned. Like I said, literally conditioned to try to like seek out, like they're not really seen as human unless they're associated with a man. You know what I'm saying? So unless they're affiliated with a man, because that's what makes them human, by being associated with a real human. But if they're not associated with one, then they're just this non-entity, non-human being, not worthy of respect, right? And that's how basically society functions, right? So you have to let that go. And I know, like I said, it's hard. It's really difficult. to do that. I think it's probably easier for someone like me to do that because, like I said, with my traits earlier, the traits I mentioned, it's just a lot easier for me to like not really be socially invested like that. But I think for a lot of women, it's probably difficult for like it can be difficult for a lot of them. So, um, yeah, I mean, you just gotta like ignore that and forget that because that is those traits that, like I said, men say women need to be good women. Yeah, that's not good. Like I said, don't worry about that. Worry about being neutral, okay? Worry about being a neutral person. Like, you don't have to prove whether you're good or bad to anyone because that's what narcs want you to do. They want you to always try and prove your character, whether you're good or not. You know what I'm saying? But you don't have to like worry about that. You don't. You have to not care about that. You really do. Because your life literally depends on that. Like, it depends on not caring, on stop worrying about being seen as the bad one, right? You got to stop worrying about that because that is what they're going to try to pressure you to feel um, like you have to worry about, right? Their judgment, like they're God judging you, basically. So, yeah, don't worry about that. Like I said, worry about what you think about yourself. That's literally the only opinion you should give a shit about. Like, that should be the most important opinion to you in this entire world is what do you think about yourself? How do you feel about yourself, right? And to stop worrying about, like I said, others' opinions in that regard.